DG. I hope I'm audible, Chair.
Yes, you are, and we can
Thank
see
you
you.
very much. During the course of the CCMA director's presentation, there was 2 or 3 cuts in between. I don't know if it's my network or it happened to everyone. So I'm going to try and be succinct to the point. You called for points of emphasis, Chair. I would like to propose that the essence of our presentation is one to just to restate what should be obvious to the audience here. The Nedlac presentation is almost a conglomeration of 3 programs, or 3 core programs. Nedlac itself is the Presidential Climate Commission, and it is the National Dialogue. Some of the highlights that will, as you have said, Chair, that the members have had the opportunity to read. Some of the highlights that the presentation should be understood in the context of is one, and this will raise eyebrows for members of the committee. We have pushed up our targets, the majority of them, to 100%. There is a context to that, which I would rather not get into, but the point I want to make in that regard is that it's an opportunity for us to push ourselves hard and see to it that which we commit to, we achieve in its totality. In the second point I'll be underscoring in our presentation is that during the course of the MTF, maybe not necessarily during the 26-27 financial year, during the course of the MTF, the state and the commission start delinking from Nedlac, become a standalone entity incorporated in that sense. The important point to make here is, and that explains why we continue to plan for the Presidential Commission as a going concern. Even that dealing will not disrupt the important work that the Commission. The third point is the national dialogue. And with respect to the national dialogue, I just want to make 2 points. First point is that it explains why, for the first time in a very long time, or if at all, the Nedlac budget is well over 100 million. It's actually just 200 million. Just over 50% of that budget is the budget for Nedlac. They put into plans almost once off activity, at least there's a program. That is why during the second year of the MTF, the budget of Nedlac goes down to under
Mr. Makuku, I'm not sure it's really on my side. You are now fading away. Yes, so I'm not sure whether that's because of the video, and I take it that it's been on for some time. Everybody,
or should I remove it?
Just to check if we can maximize your bandwidth, but also for the slides to also follow the presentation in that way. That will be helpful, especially for members of the public following the deliberations. Thank
you. Thank you, Chair. I hope I'm much better. I've removed the video.
Much better, can proceed.
Thank you. Matapel, can I ask you to go back to slide 3? Then we'll go back here much quicker. back to my slide 3. I was just on the slide before this one and the before this one. Thank you. So our focus in the next 5 years is summarized here. No, that slide on focus. Yes, thank you. This is our focus in the next 5 years. We'll continue to provide that platform that Nedlac is known for social dialogue and the sharing of best practices. We'll continue to facilitate and implement bilateral and sectoral social dialogue initiatives and collaborations. We'll engage on socio-economic policies and issues. We'll collaborate proactively and develop partnerships on identified social partnership priority areas. We'll develop more substantial synergies on climate change issues between our Nedlac and the PC. So sometimes I say ourselves, but it's basically internally amongst ourselves. We'll facilitate development of knowledge products to support social partner capacitation and enhance engagements, and will establish more robust mechanisms for social partners to monitor and evaluate implementation of laws and policies. That's over the medium-term period. And as I said, there's a point that is written in invisible ink, and that's in the first of those 3 years of the medium-term expenditure framework, will implement the national. I'll go to the next slide, which just summarizes the focus of the Presidential Climate Commission. And essentially, it's advice, it's support, and the raising of awareness and consensus building on all aspects of just transition, of climate change, on mechanisms for financing climate change, on adaptation planning and climate resilience, on tracking implementation of climate policies, knowledge platforms for best practice, ensuring strategic alignment and policy integration of climate change across the various spheres of government and across society, and developing more substantial synergies between ourselves as in the PCCN. And by Nedlac, we are emphasizing our social partners. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. From this point on, I'm going to run a lot faster. So I've already made this point, Chair. I've talked about 3 of the 5 programs that appear there. 2 I had not mentioned is administration, as well as social dialogue, advisory engagement. That's our core program, but capacity building to ensure that our social partners are capable of engaging on key issues. Next slide, please. On these following slides, we are focusing on the administration program, and essentially the key point to be made on this slide and the next one is our commitment to good governance and to maintaining our unqualified audit with no material findings. Next slide, please. And here in the next slide, we make the same point on emphasizing good governance with respect to how we procure. Next slide, please. And similarly, here the point we're making is with respect to our ICT practices. We implementing them in such a way that Nedlac becomes the epitome of an ethical, capable, and professional public sector. Next slide, please. Here we talk about training of our staff on the slide and the subsequent slide. Both training of both our staff. And go to the next slide. And the next slide is focuses on ensuring that our communication, multimedia, public, and otherwise, what we do gets known publicly. And even here, our intention is to make sure that we achieve this 100% as demonstrated in the next slide. Please go to the next slide, please. And then our core operations, which is the core business of Nedlac, is intended to ensure social dialogue between organized business, labor, community, and development interests, as well as government. And here we outline further what defines this. The first point has to do with dialogue reports submitted within 14 days, and here we commit 100%. We commit similarly to ensuring that our attendees receive those reports within 14 days, and here we commit 100%. Next slide, please. This is still about reporting, but here is with respect to reports on policy and legislative processes, which we intend concluding within the set time frames, and this we intend achieving 100%. Next slide, please. The next slide is still about milestones on critical socioeconomic issues. And this we also intend achieving 100%. Next slide, please. Here we're talking about knowledge management products. We'll identify this. As soon as those are identified, we'll implement them 100%. Next slide, please. The next is about capacity building for our social partners. And again, the target is to achieve all this 100% over the medium-term period. So the question has come up previously in the portfolio committee of how we intend achieving this, when there was one of the quarters where it came across as the target not having been achieved. And we have had engagement amongst ourselves as well as with our governance structures to say that the social partners must take an active interest in ensuring that the areas of capacity building are identified by themselves, and we help them implement those. So those will be approved, and once approved, we aim to achieve them 100%. Next slide, please. The next slides talk to the Presidential Climate Commission, and a lot of it is about dialogue, both about dialogue and about reporting and about advice. And as you can see, the idea is to ensure that we improve consensus on the just transition. It's a continuous process of awareness building, of scientific reporting. So there's 2 dialogues that are planned for the upcoming financial year, and it becomes a continuous thematic process over the medium-term process, and the intention is to achieve that 100%. Next slide, please. Then we're talking about 2 policy recommendations as set out in the annual business plan of the PCC, ensuring that those are approved and published by the end of each one of the subsequent financial years. It appears there. The aim is to achieve that 100%. Next slide, please. The third point has to do with technical reports. These also are covered in the annual business plan of the PCC. The aim is to ensure that they are approved and they are published by the end of the subsequent financial year, and it's 4 per year over the medium-term expenditure framework period to be achieved 100%. Next slide, please. The focus here is on partnership for the PCC, and the idea is to build 2 such for purposes of creating institutional capacity. And each of these, over the 3-year period, 2 of such will be built and established by the 31st of March. The aim is to achieve that 100%. Next slide, please. The next slide, and this is our final program, is the National Dialogue. The National Dialogue aims to realize a people's compact that developed through participatory dialogues, guiding South Africa's renewal through And I'm putting emphasis on the various R's and the R3, radical reforms, enabling rapid response to urgent socioeconomic dialogues, and laying the foundation to rebuild and heal the nation and strengthen democracy, social cohesion. Now, our aim for the coming financial, the current financial year, which is for purpose of establishing and implementing the national dialogue process, and then subsequent year, that is why the budget then dips down, is to produce reports that include a People's Act. Next slide, please. The next slide, thank you. It's about creating awareness on the national dialogue through marketing, communications, campaigns, having the institutional capacity for this in the Secretariat and all of that. And this also we aim to achieve 100% of it. And this continues into the medium term, the second year of the MTF, where will continue to create awareness, especially on the reports that would have been developed. The aim is to achieve all of this 100%. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next slide. I've already made reference to this. Our budget comes to a total of 185,859 for the first year of the medium term, goes down to 96 for the medium year of the medium term, goes slightly up again to 101 during the outer year of the medium term financial year. It's broken down there, Chair, into each one of the programs. I just need to point you again to the 88.9 million for the national dialogue. For the PCC is only just under 40 million. For capacity building is 5 million. For the core operations, which is the core business of Nedlac, is 20.7 million. And for administration is 35. That, Chair, in a nutshell, is our report to you. We have made the point already that the aim is to continue to achieve in audit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makuku. Oh, they are audible. I'll then hand over to Amelia, who will take us through the presentation for Productivity SA. Without further ado, Amelia, you've got the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and honourable members of the committee, Honourable Minister, Acting Director General, senior leadership of DEL and its entities, and all members on the platform. Good morning once again. I am Amelia Naidu, the Acting CEO of Productivity SA, joined with the CFO, Josiah Smoloto. Chairperson, if you allow me, I'm going to switch off my camera.
Yes, can proceed to present.
Thank you so much, Chair. Chair, thank you for the opportunity for Productivity SA to present the strategic plan. We're going to start with slide 3 and the annual performance plan for 2026-2027, as well as the associated budget framework. This will allow us to outline how Productivity SA will deliver on its mandate within the current economic context. So the plan does present, it will reflect a deliberate shift towards strengthening our institutional capacity, improving enterprise competitiveness, and scaling our interventions so that we focus on job preservation, job creation, and inclusive economic growth. The current slide is giving you an indication of our strategic plan with our mandate and our functions, as well as the outcome-oriented goals itself. And it's important to note that, yes, it may be an ambitious plan, but there's a balance between achievable targets while responding to legacy challenges related to governance, impact measurements, as well as resource constraints. Importantly, the organization is repositioning itself from an achievement of 67% in the previous 2 years to now a performance of 92% in the previous financial year. So we are focusing on impact-driven, more partnership-enabled interventions. And, it's led by innovation as well, including the establishment of the Center of Excellence, where we ensure that we are scaling up productivity interventions across all sectors. So even though the budget is constrained, which we've raised many times, but it is also aligned to prioritize our core service delivery. And ultimately, with the outcome-oriented goals and the functions that we have to do, as you can see on the current slide, is to improve productivity for sustained inclusive economic growth and competitiveness, and to promote full and productive employment and decent work, contribute to wealth creation and income growth, and to improve workplace collaboration and dialogue. This has to be done at enterprise level, sector level, as well as a country level. We can move then to slide 9. And here you just get an indication of the alignment to the NTDP itself and the strategic priorities of DEL. Because when Productivity SA came out with its strategic plan for 2025, 2026, and going into 2029, 2030, the strategic priorities of driving inclusive growth and job creation, as well as ensuring that a capable and ethical and developmental state remains our priorities as well. So there's linkage to the 7 strategic priorities of DEL. Can move to the next slide. So you will see in the next few slides the strategic plan itself with the priorities that are linked. So in relation to driving inclusive growth and job creation, the outcome is about competitive and sustainable enterprises that achieve full and productive employment and decent work for women, men, including young people and people with disabilities, as well as equal pay for equal work. Our output indicators are to support SMMEs through our competitiveness improvement services program, and that is a target that is broken down and ultimately to achieve 6,900, where we are supporting that many SMMEs. Second to that is the number of entrepreneurs, workers, and managers that we capacitate, aimed over the 5-year period at 13,000. This is both in the formal as well as the informal sector itself. And then the third indicator being the number of productivity champions that are capacitated to build awareness and promote a strong culture of productivity within South Africa. And this target over the 5-year period is 1,930. The last indicator here on the slide is the number of advocacy and public awareness campaigns. And this is done in partnership also with our strategic partners that we have prioritizing as part of the strategic plan at 64 of these advocacy and public awareness campaigns. Can move to the next slide. Okay, still on this indicator, the priority area, driving inclusive growth and job creation. Here is where you see the next program being the business turnaround and recovery processes that create conditions conducive to job retention and job creation. So the indicators here is the number of jobs saved in companies facing economic distress. And we are aiming at 21,250 jobs over the 5-year period. The number of companies facing economic distress. So within the 425 enterprises, it is employment of 21,250. So those are how the indicators work. And then the third indicator related to business turnaround recovery is the number of future foreign members that are trained and capacitated. And this is the membership that is between management and labor, the collaborative approach that we use to establish within enterprises that are facing economic distress. So that means that we're trying to capacitate 1,275 members within these enterprises. The next outcome is the provision of productivity and competitiveness related value added information. And this relates to, of course, our research reports as well as the statistics themselves. So on average, we publish 4 research reports going forward, and we are aiming at 19 research reports over the 5-year period on the priority sectors. And this also is dissemination of this information as well. The last indicator here is the number of statistical reports and that is the productivity statistics that are published on an annual basis, as well as the IMD competitiveness rating. So we're aiming at 10 for the period of 5 years. Move to the next slide. Okay, and then the next priority is building a capable and ethical and developmental state. The outcome here is strengthening the institutional capacity of Productivity SA to deliver on our mandate and be financially sustainable. So the one indicator that has since changed, but it was originally looking at reduction in audit outcomes over the period. And then second to that is a new indicator, which is the review of policies. And this relates to HR policies. So ensuring that the governance and compliance is intact. So this is about moving towards 100% reviewed policies over the 5-year period. And then the last one being percentage of planned training interventions that have commenced with an aim of 100% throughout the period itself. Can move to the next slide. So now we have the APP that is broken down for 2026-2027. So the outcomes again, which I won't repeat, but it ties in with program 1, firstly being administration, where we are saying strengthening the institutional capacity of Productivity SA. The first 3 indicators relate to administration. So the actual target here, where there is supposed to be a correction, the new target is to have an unqualified audit outcome with no material findings, and that's what the target is for the financial year. Second to that is the percentage of the actual HR policies, that is reviewed HR policies, 80% for this financial year, working towards 100% by the end of the 5-year term. And then, of course, as we mentioned, the third indicator, which is the planned training. And this is about building capacity within the Productivity SA and building this center of excellence. The 4th and 5th indicators, as well as number 6, relate to competitiveness improvement services, which is your MSME support. And I'll go into a little bit detail just now, but it's the 6th indicator is about the productivity champions that we capacitate to promote this culture. And this is through the strategic partnerships as well throughout the country, ensuring that in provinces linked to the district development model, that we actually capacitate these strategic partners so that the same message of productivity is going throughout, but we also have engagement sessions so that we can actually ensure that there's a better reach throughout all provinces and districts. And then number 7 is the number of advocacy and public awareness campaigns, where we are aiming at 11 for this financial year. And this is also through the strategic partnerships themselves. You can move to the next slide. Okay, program 3 is the Business Turnaround and Recovery Program, where we are aiming at supporting 80 enterprises. That's indicator 9. And those 80 enterprises then actually look at saving 4,000 jobs. And in saying that, when we spoke about the future forum members that need to be capacitated, that is between management and labor, those different forums that are created within the enterprises. So within this 80 enterprises, 4,000 employees are affected. But of course, there's 240 productivity champions or future forum members that are also capacitated during this period. Then the last 2 indicators relate to the research reports and the statistical reports, which is part of the priority to ensure that we have priority sectors where research is actually published. That is 4 reports and 2 statistical reports. So moving to the next slide, which gives you a summary. So here you can see the summary of the focus for 2026-2027. In summary, it is 1,313 SMMEs that we aim at supporting, 2,500 entrepreneurs, workers, and managers capacitated, both in the formal and informal sector. 80 of those enterprises that are facing economic distress that are supported through the Business Turnaround and Recovery Program. Ultimately, we want to be able to impact for the SMME support program, 6,500 jobs, and for the Business Turnaround and Recovery Program, 4,000 jobs, so that we end up ensuring that our mandate is achieved. In saying that, we also prioritize 80% Black-owned enterprises, 30% women-owned enterprises, as well as 30% youth-owned enterprises. And in saying that, we also support, as I mentioned, informal as well as the informal sector, but also prioritize people with disabilities and ensure that the partnerships actually leverage off this as well. When we continue with the sectors that we have prioritized, footwear and leather remain as one of the priority sectors because this is employment driven, as well as automotive and clothing and textile, but we do support all sectors at the end of the day. The strategic partnership is one of the main areas that we are focusing on. You can move to the next slide. This is now part of the strategy to ensure that we are leveraging off the strategic partnerships and building capacity for the entity as well. We have spoken about strategic projects on an international level in the African Kaizen Initiative, where we look at industrialization within Africa, the Quality and Productivity Improvement Initiative with the DTIC and JICA. This will continue, where Productivity SA has also been named the coordinating entity for Kaizen within South Africa. And then the ILO project, which is coming to an end now in July. And we are hoping that phase 2 would be initiated related to the ecosystem for decent work. You can move to the next slide. Okay, it just gives you an indication of how our strategy is moving forward on the strategic partnership specifically and what kind of value that we're looking at, because it's about capability that we want to be able to develop, productivity improvement initiatives, innovation and digital driven, as well as sector and SMME development with policy and research and national and regional impact. I'm going to now hand over to our CFO just to give an update on the budget itself. We can move to slide 20.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members, and also good morning to the colleagues. The provisional financial results for Productivity SA for 25-26, as you can see on the screen, we have seen some stability for the financial year where we were able to raise sufficient revenue to fund our operations as we have planned for the year. As you can see, we have managed to use the entire 64 million that was allocated from the parliamentary grant. We've also managed to raise external revenue from the two major funding agreements that we have with both UIF and the DTIC, where we managed to raise 44.2 million. And in terms of the consulting income, that we managed to raise around 42.6 million rands there. And of the revenue that we managed to collect, we have spent 83.8 million on the compensation of employees, mainly the salaries. And we've also managed to spend 65.3 million rand on goods and services. So leaving us with a surplus of around 1.9 million rand for 25-26 financial year, showing some steady financial performance for the entity thereof, that which we are intending to carry forward into the new 26-27 financial year. If we can move to the next slide. Next slide. Looking at the budget for the 26-27 financial year and the outer years, so when you look at 26-27, we are estimating a budget of 191 million rand in terms of the sources of revenue and also in terms of the long-term funding agreements that we have there, and also in terms of the consulting income that we also intend to raise thereof, and also to be in a position to fund all the operations that we are intending for 26-27 financial year, and also making sure that all that is aligned to the APP targets that we have set ourselves for the year. And as you can see, the budget is intended to grow at an average of 4% into the outer years, and of course aligning that to the estimated CPI, estimated CPI for those outer years as well. So yes, of course, the revenue that we intended to generate thereof, 191 million rand, and we are intending to spend that on the compensation of employees and the goods and services thereof in terms of funding the operations for the entity. And we are, of course, intending to break even with the expenses amounting to 191 million rand there as well. If you can proceed to the next slide. The next slide is more of budget allocation per strategic objective, just aligning this to the APP targets that the acting CEO has just presented earlier on, to say for the strategic objective number 1, which is mainly on the institutional capacity, we are intending to allocate 87.8 million rand, and as far as to improve the productivity for sustained inclusive economic growth, which is more on the CIS, we are allocating 35.9 million rands there. And as for business turnaround and recovery, 58.4 million rands there. And for research and innovation, 9.1 million rand there. And in overall, giving us 191 million rand that we are intending to allocate for 26-27 financial year. And of course, like I've indicated, we are anticipating and projecting an average annual growth of around 4%, thereof aligning to the projected CPI as well. This sums up the budget for 26-27 financial year and also on the outer financial years. I'll therefore hand over back to the acting CEO. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josias. Chairperson, Productivity SA remains committed to strengthening the role as a strategic instrument for improving productivity and specifically sustaining enterprises and preserving jobs, particularly in the vulnerable sectors of our economy. So our focus right now is about ensuring that we enhance governance, we leverage off partnerships to extend its reach as well and effectiveness, and we must be able to deliberately deepen impact as well, noting, of course, the constraints that we have. But our focus going forward is not just only on delivering against targets, but ensuring meaningful, measurable outcomes that contribute to addressing our challenges within our country of unemployment, inequality, and low productivity. So appreciate the engagement and welcome guidance from the committee as we continue to strengthen our impact. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Amelia. That brings us to the end of the presentations from the entity chair. I'm happy to hand over to yourself. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, ATG, and the entities on your presentations. Of course, honorable members, I will further waste of time. Get those who would want to engage. I see Honorable Maetso, you'd be one. Can I check if there are other members who would want to engage? Maybe as we manage the time, we'll get Honorable Maetso to proceed. I've noted you, Honorable Mbele, as number 2, Honorable Basson. But in the meantime, can we allow Honorable Maetso? You are recognized, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to the Minister, DMs in absentia, the acting DG, honorable members. Chair, I will labor too much on the CCMA because one had identified a number of critical aspects in as far as the presentation is concerned. And furthermore, Chair, just to make a quick comment to start with, I have observed that certain performance indicators, most notably the job saved metric, lack methodological clarity. And this raises concerns about their reliability as measures of impact. The limited scope of interventions targeting vulnerable sectors, combined with the absence of clearly defined access and inclusion metrics, suggest that the APP may not adequately respond to the needs of workers operating at the margins of the formal economy. Now, Chair, from an oversight perspective, from the oversight perspective, the central issue is not whether the CCMA is functioning effectively in its core mandate, but whether it is evolving sufficiently to meet the broader developmental expectations placed upon it. Furthermore, Chair, the current APP indicates incremental progress rather than a substantive shift towards a more preventative, inclusive, and impact-oriented labor market institution. While the CCMA remains a critical pillar of South Africa's labor relations system, its 2026-2027 APP underscores the need for a more balanced allocation of resources, clearer outcome-based performance measures, and a strengthened focus on proactive interventions. Now, Chair, without such adjustments, the institution risks maintaining efficiency in dispute resolutions while failing short of contributing meaningfully to long-term labor market transformation. Now, Chair, questions emanating from this particular observation, which I've just indicated. How does the CCMA plan to overcome legacy challenges such as bureaucratic passivity and limited digital literacy to fully realize the intended benefits of its digital transformation and resources optimization initiatives outlined in Program 1? And the second question, Chair, why does Program 3 receive only 1% of the budget despite its role in addressing labor market inequality? The third question will be, what measurable impact does digital adoption have on a case turnaround times and accessibility? Now, Chair, the fourth, that's why I said I'm going to be laboring too much on the CCMA. Given the persistent industrial tensions and case backlogs, what specific strategies and budgetary provisions are in place within Program 2 to enhance conciliator capacity and improve access to CCMA services in vulnerable and undeserved areas? The last two questions, Chair, will be, how will the CCMA ensure that its proactive labor market interventions in Program 3 effectively build trust and awareness among vulnerable communities, and what monitoring mechanism will be implemented to measure the real impact beyond quantitative project delivery targets? Considering the legacy fragmented approaches in essential services intervention, Program 4, in that presentation, how does the CCMA intend to enhance its research capabilities and case management systems to adopt a truly preventative stance, and is the current budget allocation adequate to support this strategic shift? Now, Chair, lastly, on the Nedlac, why does the APP rely predominantly on process indicators rather than outcome-based indicators that reflect socio-economic impact? I thank you, Chair. If time allows us to come back, we'll humbly come back. But you are at your mercy, Chair, to be allowed to come back. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Maetso. The Honorable Mpele, you are recognized. Please lower your hand, Honorable Maetso, so that I know at a time you may be raising an order. Honorable Mbele, unmute and proceed.
Hey,
Mbele,
I'm so sorry, Chairperson. This thing is giving me some challenges. I don't know what is wrong today. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me first greet the minister, management, senior management, and all managers. And then let me also greet my fellow members. And let me greet Chair, I don't have a lot to ask today. It's not a lot, but I've got only some few questions for CCMA. The first one is that why has the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation, and Arbitration allocated a mere 1% of its total budget to proactive labor market intervention, despite the program being central to addressing entrenched labor market inequalities and expanding access to vulnerable sectors? Does this not demonstrate a structural bias towards a reactive dispute resolution at the expense of the transformation? The second one, what precise methodology? I know this one has been asked because I have already noted, then let me just read it. Yeah, what precise methodology underpins the CCMA's reported 38% job saved indicator, and how is this figure independently verified to ensure credibility? Is the department satisfied that this metric reflects genuine institutional impact rather than external economic conditions? Now, Chair, the other question, the last question for CCMA, what specific strategies are being implemented to improve the turnaround time and accessibility of dispute resolution services provided by the CCMA, particularly to vulnerable workers in remote or underserved areas? Now, the last question that I'm going to ask goes to Nedlac, Chair. On what ground is the National Economic Development and Labour Council justified in allocating nearly half of its total budget of 88.9 million to the National Dialogue Programme when this initiative lacks clearly defined and quantifiable performance indicators? What safeguards are in place to prevent wasteful expenditure and ensure measurable outcomes? That is the last question that I'm going to ask today. I'm very short, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
thank you, Honorable Basson. You are recognized.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, my questions are two and they are sweet and short. Number one is for CCMA. We are sitting with a numerous amount of backlog cases not resolved, dates being prolonged, which is totally unacceptable. Even in my own area in Mpumalanga, we are seeing this every month. Yet, this is not being reflected on the reports we are receiving. The rural areas are not being served. It is extremely difficult for a farm worker who lives 50 kilometers out of town to access the CCMA, as they have to look for the documents online. We need to look at going back to Home Affairs or Department of Labor to allow rural workers and previously disadvantaged people to be able to get forms and to use CCMA to their benefit as well. Then my second one is, in the 2026 budget, the president made mention of 10,000 more labor inspectors that will be employed. I don't see this budget on any of our reports so far. When is it going to come up, and when will this 10,000 people, new inspectors, be implemented? Thank you, sir.
you, Honorable Person, the last member whose hand was up, Honorable Nanzala.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. My network is not good where I am. I lost some of the earlier contributions, so my apology, Honorable Chair. I might repeat in some points where those might have been covered. But I thought that I did get Honorable Mayeto when he was making a contribution, and the rest of others. Honorable Chair, greetings to you, greetings to Honorable Minister, Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members, and the ADG and the team. Again, Chair, we want to raise some few points in appreciation of the presentations that have been made. And the department has been, in fact, on point on a number of areas with regard to presentation, but would want to make an examination, as honorable members have already done, in addition to the points that have been made. With regard to productivity, SA Chair, it's just a few observations just before I raise two questions. That the annual performance plans, that is of the 2026-2027 financial year for PSA, outlines a comprehensive set of output indicators aimed at enhancing institutional capacity, supporting enterprise competitiveness, enabling business turnaround and recover, and reproducing there's a disruption, Chair. Sorry, Chair, do you?
We can hear you. It's not on our part.
Okay. No, it's on my side. Somebody has just disrupted me with a call. Thank you, Chair. Just to recap again, Chair, it's around the annual performance plans, that is of productivity SA, the appreciation of the presentations that they have done. But with regard to the targets set for each program, reflect a blend of ambition and realism, reflecting the organization's commitment to driving inclusive economic growth and job creation. For instance, supporting 1,313 SMEs through competitive improvement services and capacitating 2,500 entrepreneurs and workers underscores the intention to actively foster a culture of productivity and enterprise sustainability. However, whilst these figures build upon past achievement, there remains a need to address legacy challenges, including ensuring deeper impact per supported enterprise and expanding outreach to underserved communities. On the business turnaround and recovery program, the target saving that is of 4,000 jobs and supporting 80 distressed companies reflects a significant and forward-looking approach. But it raises a question on whether it adequately meets the continuous high demand driven by economic distress. Additionally, the intensive resource requirements of effective turnaround interventions require that these targets be backed by robust operational capacity and strengthened partnership, as highlighted in the strategic emphasis on public-private partnership. Just quickly on the questions, Chair, that with regard to productivity SA, how does productivity SA plan to enhance the depth and quality of support provided by SMEs and entrepreneurs beyond current numerical targets to address legacy challenges related to impactful outreach and sustainability? The second question, Chair, again on productivity SA, is that what concrete measures will be implemented to address persistent institutional legacy risks such as procurement, non-compliance, inadequate record keeping, and audit findings to strengthen governance and operational resilience, that is in the year 2026-27 financial year. Moving to Nedlac, Nedlac strategic annual performance plan and budget, that is for 2026-2027, raises quite a number of positive areas that should be highly appreciated. But also there are a number of areas of concern, given that some of the budgeted items or commitments are in fact linked to specific programs that in fact have a clear timeline, meaning that some of the projections that may be there, including the totality of the budget, may not necessarily be sustainable beyond a particular timeline. I talk in this regard with regard to the issue of the national dialogue and also the issue of the Presidential Climate Commission, which basically have the bigger share of the budget that the entity is talking to. But let me make just these few observations, Honorable Chair, that in the financial year, Nedlac annual performance plan present a set of indicators across its 5 programs, aiming to build a well-governed institution, facilitate robust social dialogue, enhance social partner capacity, support climate policy integration, and nurture inclusive national dialogue. The indicators reflect ambition, and particularly in ensuring 100% compliance in delivering timely dialogue reports and policy engagement outputs, comprehensive capacity building interventions, and driving a just transition dialogue within the Presidential Climate Commission. While these targets are well aligned with Nedlac's mandate to foster growth, equity, and participation through social dialogue, there is an inherent challenge in translating high target percentages such as 100% report submission and milestone achievements into tangible impact, given South Africa's complex socio-economic, socio-political dynamics and often bureaucratic delays that have historically hindered coordinated policy implementation. In relation to legacy issues, just another observation, Chair, is that the annual performance plans rightly addresses capacity building for social partners, which has been a long-standing concern in ensuring meaningful participation. The target of implementation 100% of approved capacity building intervention demonstrates an acknowledgement of past weaknesses, where uneven engagement led to a lack of inclusivity. However, without explicit indicators measuring the quality and efficacy of these interventions, there remains a risk of superficial compliance that does not empower historically marginalized community and labor formations adequately. The point, therefore, Chair, is whether, for instance, that is in talking to overall the budget that has been committed, whether regarding achievability linked to the budget, the allocation revealed the following concentrated investment, which I've spoken about earlier on, that is 35,000 million, and that is from the Presidential Commission, and as well as the National Dialogue initiatives, which is 88.9 million. That is for the financial year under review. While the National Dialogue budget dwarfs other programs, this ambitious financial outlay demands rigorous oversight to translate public participation into actionable policy, particularly given past challenges around dialogue fatigue and disillusionment. The moderate allocations for core operations and capacity building, which is 20.7 million and 5.1 million respectively, may constrain Nedlac's ability to scale up social partner training and sustained engagement activities, which are vital for deepening democratic participation, aligned with our trajectory as the African National Congress of addressing inequality and promoting social cohesion. So these are the points, Honorable Chair, that I've made earlier on with regard to observations on the APPs of the entity, which is Nedlac. The following questions, Chair, I would want to raise as a consequence of the observations. The first question I want to pose is, how will Nedlac ensure that the ambitious 100% delivery targets for dialogue reports and policy engagements outputs translate into meaningful and sustained socioeconomic impact, given historical challenges within bureaucratic delays and uneven participation? The second question is as follows, sir. What specific measures will be implemented to assess and enhance the quality and effectiveness of capacity building interventions for social partners beyond merely meeting implementation percentages? The third question is as follows. Considering the substantial budget allocated to the national dialogue, which is already stated, the 88.9 million, relative to other programs, how will Nedlac safeguard against the dialogue fatigue and ensure that participatory processes lead to concrete policy reforms aligned with the socioeconomic aspirations? The fourth question, how will Nedlac and the Presidential Climate Commission operationalize their intended synergies on climate change issues whilst addressing institutional capacity gaps and ensuring the effective monitoring of climate finance flows? And final question, given the moderate funding for core operations and capacity building, what strategies will Nedlac employ to mobilize additional resources and optimize its operational efficiency to fulfill its mandate of promoting inclusive economic growth and social justice through social dialogue? Those are my submissions, Honorable Chair, with regard to productivity SA, which are 2 questions, and the Nedlac, which are 5 questions. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Am I still with you, Chair? Oh, okay, thank you.
These are questions that would have been asked by the honorable members. Of course, will be guided by you, the Honorable Minister, on how you'd want to approach the responses to the questions so that the entity respond.
Sorry,
with that,
sorry, Honorable Chair.
Yes, Honorable Nanzala, on that point.
Honorable Chair, I thought that with your indulgence, let me dispose of the other questions I have on PSA so that I don't have to come back again.
Okay, can conclude.
If you allow me.
Yes, then Honorable Minister, you will then immediately after those questions are exhausted, give the indication on the approach to responses. Honorable Nanzala.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, for your indulgence, and also thanks to Honorable Minister as well. Chair, the questions again relates to productivity SA, so that we conclude the set of questions I prepared for the session. The third question, because I've raised initially 2 questions, the third question would be, considering the tight alignment between the annual performance plan targets and the allocated budget, how will productivity SA safeguard the achievability of the strong productivity and research outputs, especially given risks related to human resource capacity losses and the need for continuous innovation? The last question would be, what proactive approach does Productivity SA employ to identify SMEs that are at risk of financial distress or liquidation? And what specific plans or initiatives are in place to assist these SMEs early enough to prevent job losses, and considering that the entity may not have the financial capacity to support all the SMEs? Those are the two additional questions, Chair. Thanks for your indulgence and for accommodating me, and also to Honorable Minister and her team. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nansala. Honorable Minister, as I said, you'll also give guidance on how you want to respond, to whether you come later or you start.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair, and thank you to the honorable members. I will request that I come last, and I'll hand over to the DG to come back with the responses. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members, for those questions that have been asked. I think given that these were also entity specific, can I request that the colleagues from CCMA, Nedlac, and Productivity respond to those questions? And if there are any gaps in those, then I will close and then hand over to the minister. They must have noted those questions. We'll start with Mr. Ngcono, then followed by Mr. Mampuru, then Ms. Naidu, in that order, to answer all the questions that have been asked by the honorable members. Thank you.
No, thank you, Acting DG. I think thank you for the questions. I think in answering the questions, I do have some of the executive members who are going to come in and assist from time to time. But I've also noted that in some of the questions, they are overlapping. It's the same question surrounding budgetary issues. So if it's permitted, maybe we can just answer to that question on the issue of budget and backlog once off, because I see Honorable Mayedze and Basson have asked the same thing surrounding the addressing of the backlog. I think the first question from Honorable Mayedze related to the overcoming of legacy challenges and limited digital literacy. If we summarize it, I think in before the CIO comes in, I just want to indicate that the strategy in approaching digital transformation is based on people, process, and systems. It's had a look at our own internal stakeholders, which is our staff, but also our external stakeholders, which is our users. So as we transform internally into an agile workforce, we have what is called change management as part of the digital transformation, and it's phased. Before we implement a system, we train staff on the system, and then we implement. But notwithstanding, we also have external stakeholders, which are our users, and the approach there is a phased rollout system. We've installed Wi-Fi rollout in all our offices to ensure that there is some accessibility insofar as our processes. We have what is called a WhatsApp chatbot, which then assists users to refer their disputes via WhatsApp. We maintain a hybrid model in that we still continue to have our front desks. At our front desk, we have what is called kiosks or e-kiosks, where parties can then submit their forms via e-referrals. When it comes to virtual hearings, where a party is indicating that they want the matter to be heard virtually, but they don't have the necessary equipment, we do make those virtual hearings available at our premises. And we also still maintain what is called an information service and contact center, which then assists with any queries that relate to digital transformation or any other related queries pertaining to the CCMA. CIO, I don't know if you want to come in just add on the issue of the overcoming legacy challenges limited to digital literacy before we move to the next question.
Through you, Chair, and thank you, Director. You've covered me by and large. And just to support what the Director has said, part of the moving number of initiatives in terms of the digital transformation. One, if by rolling and moving as much of our referrals to be done on the digital platforms, it's intentional to ensure that at the front desk that the Director has mentioned, we can free more capacity in terms of our case management officers to assist users who are coming in, bringing matters to CCMA, and who may have struggled with using the digital platforms. But over and above that, what the Director has also mentioned in terms of the e-kiosk, those are there to enable those users who may not have the digital tools to be able to access our platforms, and that we have provided the actual tools together with the publicly accessible Wi-Fi. And this is intentional to say from the start of the journey, how do we capacitate those who may not have the tools to be able to access the digital platforms, and the rest I'm covered by the Director. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, CIO. I'm going to club the next question by Honorable Maedzo, which related to the program 3 budget allocation, together with how those proactive labor interventions, I think, build trust and awareness. And I'm going to ask the NSC Social Justice Academy just to come in once I've concluded. So I just want to remind the honorable members that CCMA has, as indicated in the presentation, we have mandatory functions which we are must perform, and we then have discretionary functions as contained in Section 115 of the Labor Relations Act. Now, priority when it comes to the allocation of budget has rightfully been provided to our mandatory functions, which is dispute resolution, conciliation, mediation, and arbitration. Insofar as Program 3, this is a discretionary function, and I think with it being a discretionary function, attached to it is we work through, in some instances, where permitted, on a cost recovery basis, in that we offer and then we get a recovery on that aspect. But insofar as the interventions that we do roll out, we have targeted vulnerable sectors. These targeted vulnerable sectors are agriculture, mining sector, domestic sector, together with the retail sector. And I think our awareness, or our proactive approach there, is to create awareness of our services that we have as a CCMA and how to access those services. And also further to that, we also advocate insofar as how your rights, or your constitutional rights, can be exercised. I think then from here on, having started the process, I'm going to ask the National Senior Commissioner of Social Justice to come in and just close on this point of the proactive labor market interventions in building trust and awareness.
Thank you so much, Director. Through you, Chairperson. In the context of the CCMA, rightly as Director's already indicated, vulnerability is regarded as the categories of employment and specific sector employees who are more susceptible to exploitation due to the weak bargaining position, low income, precarious work arrangements, and the lack of union representation, as well as our other challenges on employment security. To build trust, we conduct a series of user trends analysis on the data that we have through our case management system to identify those high referring workplaces and trade unions and sectors that present as vulnerable. Based on the outcome of this trends analysis that we conduct, being from high referring workplaces or from trade unions. We engage with the view of signing these vulnerable sector project plans as well as workplace transformation plans. These projects have a number of interventions to support those engaged workplaces, such as capacity building and problem-solving interventions delivered through, be it workshops as well as other types of engagements with a view of problem and conflict management. The feedback that is recorded from our users and participants indicate that the beneficiaries find these interventions as highly beneficial, specifically with regards to resolving workplace challenges identified in the various interventions and, of course, through the conceptualization process. Additionally, Chairperson, in our quest to create awareness raising and inclusivity, we have our advocacy campaign, which is implemented through a number of interventions and interaction with various stakeholders and social partners. And it is through these advocacy interventions that we assist vulnerable and underserved communities with the mechanisms to access CCMA services, as well as ongoing engagements with our stakeholders and social partners so that we improve accessibility and expand the CCMA service delivery footprint. Lastly, Chairperson, to measure the impact beyond the quantitative project, we have commissioned an impact assessment on the transformation of workplace relations as well as vulnerable sector projects. And this assessment will be conducted by midterm in the 2026-2027 financial year. Thank you so much, Chairperson. I hand back to you.
Okay. Thank you, NSC, Social Justice and Academy. I'm going to just jump off and go to and answer Honorable Mbele's question on the matrix use on the job save intervention, because I think Honorable Maetso touched on it, and then I'll move on to the industrial tension related issue. I think in talking to the matrix that on job save, it's a simple matrix, honorable members. What happens is when a dispute is referred, the referral form will indicate there as the employer or as the referring party, because it can be the employer or the union that refers, a Section 189A large-scale facilitation process. On that referral, to indicate how many employees do you have in the workforce, and insofar as having referred this for 189A facilitation, how many employees are likely to be retrenched. So it's a number that's given by the parties at the commencement of the process. That number then is then confirmed during the process, the facilitation process, which is on record, and it's a recorded process. So as the matter proceeds, the parties at some in the process, it is settled how many employees were likely to be retrenched as a result of this facilitation process. Then what we do then is, as the process proceeds and the meetings proceed and the matter is finalized, the measurement is from how many employees were likely to be retrenched at the commencement of that facilitation process versus how many employees were then retrenched, if any, at the conclusion of that Section 189A facilitation process. That's when we then capture then the numbers insofar as the job saves and how many people were retrenched. So the matrix, it measures the percentage based on that. It's not really a complicated matrix. It's a settled matrix, and it doesn't really create issues insofar as what the honorable members were indicating, that how is it measured? The percentage is obtained from the referral through the process and at the conclusion of the process. So there's nothing untoward. It does measure exactly how many jobs we saved as per the referral we've received. I'll then move to the industrial tension and the addressing of the backlog. I don't know, NSC dispute resolution, Kumala, do you want to come in and succinctly address this part of the industrial tension and addressing the issues of the backlog? Because I think in addressing that, you'll assist us with the Honorable Bason's question on the turnaround times insofar as the backlog is concerned. You may come in, NSC.
No, thank you, Director. Thank you, Chairperson. Good day to you, to the Minister, honorable members, acting DG, and colleagues from different entities. Now, Chair, on this question, we know that it's a common cause. It's something that has been raised previously. That there is a sort of what we call a service delivery challenge, where there are delays in attending to matters speedily, because the Labour Relations Act mandates us as CCMA that whenever we conduct our process, they must be done expeditiously. But what we've done, Chair, because to deal with the backlog in this financial year, we've made a provision of 28 million for private commissioners, because there was previously an issue that they were working less days because of the budget. But this time around, we have made a provision. That provision is meant to address one issue, because we need to attend to matters speedily. And we also use our full-time commissioners to make sure that we maximize when it's come to conciliation, arbitration, and job saving. And on the issue whether we are successful, we are, Chair, because we have put quite a high efficiency. There is CCMA from the date on which we receive a 713 arbitration up until we conclude the matter. We said to ourselves, we want to take the 120 days to conclude that. Although the Act doesn't say, it only talks about two statutory targets. One, you need to refer the matter to CCMA under 30 days and so forth. Once you have concluded, you need to file arbitration within 14 days. But because we realize that labor made tasks by their nature are agent, they must be resolved expeditiously. So we've put a high efficiency that we want to ensure that our matters are finalized speedily. And Chair, we may then deal perhaps with the question of the issue of accessibility, because there is a question regarding what's happening to the vulnerable sector, employees who live in the online areas. Chair, we can report that we've got outside venues in outlying areas. We've got an MOU with SALGA, work well with Dell as well, so that we access their venues. We're even doing more, because there are paid venues where we use the BNB, because we're trying to minimize the burden of our users traveling long distances in order to get social justice. So at the remote areas like in Mpumalanga, we have 3 offices. We have Malahleni, we have Mbombela, as well as other venues, so that at least when they come to hear their matters, we go close to them rather than for them to travel to these urban centers where matters are ahead. No, thank you, Director. I think that's all for me for now.
No, thanks. And I think just to add on to the venue issue, we continue to engage with various stakeholders to identify potential venues. I think we are trying to, as part of this, and maybe we can be assisted on this platform to try and see if we can have access to public works buildings for purposes of just making sure that we then have the requisite reach, and this is a cost-effective one, because the access to those public works, especially in outlying areas, would then assist us to become more accessible. I think with the last question, it had to do with essential services, and we have the essential services chairperson. I'm not sure if the deputy is online. SC Mafachale, are you able to just address that question on essential services as asked by Honorable Mayet?
Thank you, Director, and greetings to the Honorable Minister and Honorable Portfolio Committee members and DG, as well as our colleagues from other institutions. Yes, Chairperson, the question has been raised on the fragmented approaches in the essential services interventions and issues of research, case management, and obviously the budget allocation that will be addressed as well. with regard particular to essential services, we're saying we are intentionally going to transition from reactive to proactive approaches in delivering the ESC mandate, as our mandate is to ensure compliance in the essential services. Now, one of the challenges with the ESC has been, how do you then recognize or know when there's a potential strike that may impact essential services in the community? So we're going to expressly look at the implementation of early warning systems, and that we'll do through media monitoring tool. And on regular basis, this tool will give us media reports that would detect if there's any emerging strike threat in that may have a potential in interrupting the essential services. Then it will enable the ESC to respond quickly before we even have service interruptions. And in the broader sense, I think in terms of the research that we have a research unit that we are going to use, and we look at topical issues that have an impact on the monitoring of the essential services. And therefore, with this research tool, we've already conducted one, and we're continuing to do others, where we specifically look at the root causes of strikes actions, particularly unprotected strike actions, where there's an impact on essential services. And from there, we are able to draw up a plan in which we'll operationalize and have an active activities where we engage collaboratively with stakeholders to identify some of the root causes and find out, do they have effective dispute resolution processes? Are there gaps? What are the challenges, the difficulties in the labor relations, union rivalities? A lot of those issues that we'll be able to deal with. And then we can also advise on other CCMA activities that are within there for building workplace relations. Sometimes you find that there's issues of ignorance of the legislative obligation to have minimum services in essential services. So that's actually our plan in terms of enhancing our research capability with the research department that we have, as well as ensuring that we at least have a tool that will help us to be proactive so that we don't have to come in already when there's an unprotected strike action and essential services have already been disrupted. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Chair. I think, Acting DG, to my knowledge, it seems as if you've answered all the questions. Stand to be corrected. Thank you.
Thank you, CCMA. I think in the interest of time, can we then move to Nedlac and then followed by Productivity SA? Thank you.
Thank you, DG, Chair, Minister members, and Ubuntu Swiss, our Executive Manager for Corporations, will answer the first question by Member Majo to do with indicators. Paran Shamsuddin, our CFO, will answer the question on budget and our measures to mitigate potential fruitless, wasteful, irregular, and authorized expenditure, then do the rest. You can start, please, Nobuntu.
Seem like Mr. Ubuntu is able to get through.
Okay, Chair, I'm not sure if she heard me, but if she hasn't, it's fine. I'll proceed to answer the question in the interest of time. So the question is about the nature of our indicators. And
I see. Mr. Kuku, I'm saying yes. I see the day of Miss CBC, so she wanted to proceed.
Oh, okay. No, if she's ready to proceed, let do proceed.
them to be muted. Unmute and proceed. Can't hear. Unmute and then proceed. It's unless it's on my side, I really can't hear, even though I see speaking.
We all can't hear, Honorable Chair.
Okay, maybe let's then proceed, Mr. Makuku, to continue.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe she'll get sorted. Let's proceed to Paran. Then, if she's still not sorted out, I'll answer the question at the end. Paran, on the budget issues.
Thank you, ED. Through you, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, Honorable Minister, all protocol observed. Through you, Chair, I'll just be switching off my video to ensure no connectivity issues. I think there are two questions which related to the finances. The first one, I think two of the members asked for the in relation to the size of the budget of the dialogue. Why is it so large compared to the other programs of Nedlac? I think the main reason for that is the National Dialogue is a conditional grant specifically linked to this National Dialogue project for the shorter period of time. It's not necessarily a part of Nedlac's, let me say, normal activities. This is linked to the planned activities of the roadmap or implementation plan of the dialogue that were initially costed last year when we met with Treasury. The review and consideration of this budget is done on an ongoing basis as the process unfolds. The budget itself cannot be allocated to any of the other Nedlac programs. It is conditional and specific to the dialogue project itself. I think an important point, and maybe hopefully it eases some of the concerns of members, is that the budget is additional to the original Nedlac budget. So it wasn't that some of the other programs the budgets of the other programs were reduced to cater for this. This was over and above the original budgets that were allocated and were not taken from other programs. Then there was also a question linked again to the National Dialogue as well as the PCC in terms of the projections not being sustainable. Maybe starting with the dialogue itself, we are already seeing that there are some delays in terms of the implementation of the project from what was initially envisaged towards the end of the last financial year. So there will probably be a process of revising the budget in the current financial year, the 26-27 financial year, as well as 27-28 financial year when that process comes. But this will be considered during potential adjustment process as well as the next APP which we bring to the portfolio committee probably around next year this time. So there are considerations of the budget at any given point, and yes, there are some delays in the process. So we will have to consider that as we go ahead in this project. As part of the sustainability of the budget on the dialogue, there is a plan also of obtaining private and donor funding as well as in-kind services from government as well. So that all forms part of the larger part of the National Dialogue budget that is being considered. With regards to the PCC, I think maybe just a comment with regards to that they are, I think, well underway in terms of a process of leaving Nedlac itself and becoming a standalone entity. And when that process happens, we will then ease them out of our budget, and they will have then their own APPs and so on, APPs and budgets. But as part of the process, as part of the process of moving on to becoming a standalone entity, they are working with Treasury to receive an increased transfer to ensure that they are able to cover their costs as well as their operational costs as well as project-related costs. Currently, I think it must be said they are doing quite well when it comes to raising donor funds to cover their project costs, which is their current model. So I think with the future model, which they're working with in terms of their business plan, part of that will be to have an increased transfer to cover for more of the project funds as well, and then having a lesser reliance on on donor funding to fund the core projects. And then I think there's also a question with regards to the prevention of fruitless irregular expenditure in relation specifically to the dialogue. But I think my response will probably cover the dialogue as well as just generally Nedlac itself. On all expenditure, whether it's national dialogue, PCC, or normal Nedlac expenditure, we ensure for procurement that Nedlac policies are followed to the T. So even though it's a national dialogue, it's sitting within Nedlac and therefore will follow the same processes. Therefore, strict adherence basically to our supply chain management policy and processes, monitoring and ensuring that our control environment is always strong, segregation of duties, reviews, and so on. Obviously, including regular training to staff as well as implementing any consequence management if required. But I think the summary of it is whether it's program 1, 2, 3, up until 5, including the dialogue, we're always ensuring that we applying the Nedlac policy, which is compliant with the PFMA and regulations. Through you, Chair, if I can maybe hand over to Makuku just to finish off the other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Farhan. Thank you, Chair. Chair, with your permission, I want to just test for a second if Nobuntu is any better. Nobuntu? If not, I'll simply proceed. Doesn't sound like she's gotten any better. So, Chair, let me start with the question I had asked her to answer for us, and it's got to do with the manner in which we do our indicators. We determine our indicators, and the question that was asked was in the nature. They say our indicators look like they are process indicators as against outcomes-based indicators. And that the observation may well be correct, but I would offer the view that they are a function of the reason for which we have been created, what the Act expects of us to do, which is to be a social dialogue institution, to organize dialogues, all manner of dialogues, and to seek consensus amongst the social. And may, if not me, my predecessors, someone else, may have made the observation previously that because that's Nedlac is a creature of statute, and that is provided for in our law. If we were to venture into implementation or even monitoring evaluation of the institutions for which bills and acts and policies are developed, having gone through Nedlac, it might infer that or require that the statute that establishes Nedlac is probably revised to allow for that. I hope that is helpful. Then Honorable Nonzele, Member Nonzele has asked several questions. I'm going to try and answer. Okay, some of them, the budget ones, I think Farhan has covered. But I think I should probably just talk to the issue about 100%. I tried to preempt the question, Chair, right at the beginning, to say much as there's a history to us going the route of 100% targeting for a lot of our targets. The part of our rationale is to try and push us to see how much better they say the best person or institution to compare yourself to is yourself. It's yourself today as compared to yesterday. We have had a run of 3 years of clean audits that include performance-based audits. And what we are seeking to explore is pressuring ourselves into achieving as much as possible of what we commit to do. So that's why you would see with our APP, we at least 2/3 of our targets are to achieve 100% of those. That's essentially it, to push ourselves to perform better than we had been performing previously, and that has been relatively a good performance. There's this question which for me it sounds like it's contextual. The issue about safeguarding against dialogue fatigue. I think yeah, I don't know if we can guarantee that we may not realize dialogue fatigue. The best I can do in attempting to answer that question is to reflect on what our plans are for purposes of the national dialogue. First is to have pilot dialogues, to have them in wards and to have them sectorally. In other words, have a pilot dialogue, for example, with the LGBTQIA plus community on issues affecting that community, on issues affecting society in general. Do the same with immigration, diaspora, labor, business, all the sectors that are represented, all 39 plus sectors represented in the National Dialogue Steering Committee and beyond, faith-based sector. So that's one thing that we intend doing. Then we intend training dialogue facilitators who we will then deploy to every community, every ward in the country. And the plan is to have 13,000 plus dialogues at ward level. That translates to about, on average, 3 dialogues per ward. So in a community, there will be a dialogue maybe held at the church, at the school, wherever else. And this facilitators that would have been trained would then facilitate those dialogues in those communities. Similarly, part of our plans is to advocate for some kind of a dialogue day, national dialogue day in the education sector. And if that works out, all 20,000 plus schools, about 26,000, I think, would then have dialogues on a particular day, maybe 2 days in a year. And those dialogues would be facilitated by teachers. We are in advanced discussions with the National School of Government to train our facilitator, including training teachers into national dialogue facilitators. Similarly, have dialogues in higher education. And you get the picture, Chair. All of that, the intention is to get people interested in the process of the national dialogue, and not the process for its sake, but the attempt to provoke society into providing solutions, not typical run-of-the-mill solutions, but solutions that would apply to them at every level, whether it is on GBF, whether it is on crime, all these things that are troubling society on there was a question about mobilizing additional resources, and perhaps I should venture into because I thought I had a question that suggested that 89 million for the national dialogue was a bit of an overkill. But I think this is the flip side of a similar question, because I agree in case Member Nonsele, your point is that 89 million will not suffice for the entire country. to run the various dialogues, and I agree with that. So we are in engagements with organized business. I think I've said this point previously, if not on these forums of Parliament, but in other forums. We've engaged with the Millennium Labour Council, in which mainly big business sits with organized labor. And in those engagements, in particular with the co-chair of the Millennium Labour Council, it seemed like big business would be keen to support the national dialogue. They have given their own conditions, of course, and they said they wouldn't want to give money for operations, for example, for us to appoint staff, for us to buy computers, that kind of thing. They wouldn't want to do that. But if we come to them and say, here is a specific dialogue, it is taking place in the Lusikisiki area, it is about youth unemployment, it is about crime, but we're having problems. We need to get people to various venues. We need to get catering for the people. We need to have audio-visual equipment. We need to record the proceedings. And we give them such as a proposal. They will be able to mobilize amongst them, their members, to make sure that such an activity is provided funds for. So those are the alternatives that we have in mind. We are even talking to some sectors, because some sectors are self-sufficient. For example, with regard to publicizing the work of the National Dialogue, I was talking to representatives of the arts and culture sector about the possibility of having a song that will be played in public broadcasting services, for example, but also publicly, to popularize the national dialogue. We'll be engaging with philanthropic bodies in a week or two on the possibility of them funding specific activities, not necessarily giving the national dialogue money. I think Chair, I've covered everything. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, can I come in? It's Amelia from Productivity SA.
Please do.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the comments as well as the questions from Honorable Tsele. I am going to respond to a few of them and then give the last one to our CFO. So in relation to the depth and quality of the support that was raised about SMMEs and entrepreneurs itself, how it must go beyond just the targets, and how do we address the legacy challenges to ensure impactful outreach and sustainability. Chair, while our targets remain very important as a measure of reach as well, but we have deliberately shifted towards ensuring that quality and sustainability of support for SMMEs and entrepreneurs are there. And this is being achieved through more of what we call like an assessment or diagnostic approach, where interventions are tailor-made to the challenges experienced by each of the entities itself or enterprises, rather than just applying standardized solutions, one off-the-shelf type of trainings, as well as mentorship and coaching is of course customized accordingly. But even ensuring that we have the latest up-to-date type of support. And that's why we are capacitating through the Center of Excellence, ensuring that we have proven methodologies, and we're capacitating our internal staff, the practitioners that go out into the field, go out to support these enterprises with best practices and ensure that impact extends beyond just the direct beneficiaries. So in saying that, we have already strengthened some of our monitoring or post-intervention type of monitoring and what we call aftercare. So we ensure that once the support is complete, we also provide additional, aftercare type of support, which allows us to track improvements, in productivity, and ultimately to be able to respond as well to job retention, the job preservation, as well as the job creation side of it. So very much moving towards impact-based type of measurements. With us in the underserviced areas or the vulnerable enterprises, we of course are targeting youth-owned enterprises, women and people with disabilities. But further to that, we are using the strategy, which I know I've raised as well, on the strategic partnerships. So it's almost a multi-pronged approach to ensure that we also have access of services to those enterprises or the underserviced areas or the remote areas. So the approach is firstly that we're strengthening these partnerships on a provincial and a local level. So that's through the municipalities, provincial departments, and the agencies as well. And we leverage off existing platforms to identify the support that is required and ensuring that we have full physical footprint. But secondly, we also have that blended approach where we're bringing in more of digital technology and delivery models itself, so that it goes beyond just the traditional geographical limitations that we have. But again, we're going to be using these platforms through the municipalities that are involved, as well as the other strategic partners like with CETVA and so forth. And thirdly, through the Center of Excellence, I mentioned about scaling some of the tools or the practices, methodologies and trainings, but it's also through the productivity champion approach that we are implementing it through the partners and the stakeholders involved, so that there is direct reach as well through the strategic relationships on the type of support that is required for these SMMEs themselves and entrepreneurs. So prioritizing, the high need provinces and sectors are really part of the concentration for us as an entity. And this is also that we're ensuring that when we expand, or as we expand, not when, so as we expand, we are reaching, within our budget, but cost effectively, more partnership driven, and ensuring that we are doing it at a scalable manner as well, to ensure that we are maximizing our impact at a provincial level. The second part, or the second question, was about the alignment or the tight alignment between APP targets and allocated budgets, and how we're ensuring that we are achieving the productivity or strong productivity and research outputs itself, noting, of course, the human capacity losses that it has to ensure that we are also innovating. While the budget is tight, or relatively tight, to scale of the mandate, our budget is not actually there to support from operation side of it, but the entity has adopted that strategic and adaptive approach where we're ensuring achievability of our targets. So, and you see it also with our APP results as well. We must be able to show the impact as well as achieving, when we speak about these SMART targets themselves, the output indicators, we ensure that we are leveraging, as I said to you, about the strategic partnerships. But also it's through these partnerships, with international agencies that we've seen success. We've seen also with the municipalities, we've seen with, the other partners that we co-fund interventions and optimize this resource utilization, because the ecosystem is very important. And that's one of the things that came out very strongly from the ILO intervention, which was the productivity ecosystem for decent work, because we had different role players, looking at the strategy as a whole. And we as Productivity SA remained with these strategic partners, and we went beyond just the project itself. And we ensured that while we're enabling, or scaling up the impact of our interventions itself, it's also about knowledge sharing and ensuring that even when it's research-based, our interventions and our functions for research specifically is done in partnership like with academia, but also aligned to some of our sister entities, some of their priorities as well. We are ensuring that we mitigate the risk of human resource capacity, when it comes to prioritizing our skills retention, ensuring that we have the best up-to-date type of methodologies we're implementing, and therefore we go back to the experts themselves and we're continuously training and building the knowledge management side of it. That is very critical for research and technical areas for the entity. So overall, the focus is on efficiency. It's on innovation and ensuring that we leverage off these partners to deliver on our existing, our targets within the existing financial constraints. Then the third one that I'm going to respond to was about the proactive approach to identify SMMEs that are at risk of financial distress or liquidation, and what are specific plans or initiatives that are in place so that we have early enough interventions or to prevent job losses specifically for the SMMEs itself. So for Productivity SA, we of course have actively shifted more from a reactive approach to a proactive and preventative approach or model. And this has been in place, through the business turnaround and recovery as a proactive initiative for early detection. But remember, for business turnaround and recovery, we have to ensure that these companies or these SMMEs specifically, are to actually be able to intervene with them at a point where we can actually stabilize these entities and not come in only when they're going through a Section 189A. So the proactive approach is to capacitate, of course, between unions and, when it comes to business itself and associations, to be able to understand exactly what type of interventions are out there and available through the partnerships as well. And so that we can go in earlier and do an assessment of the business and be able to turn this business around before they go through that distress state. We say while they are actually at decline, we should actually be able to do this. So we are strengthening that early detection through the partners itself and the ecosystem, but specifically through developmental, finance institutions. There is where we identify as well the SMMEs, but also sector bodies, municipalities, industry associations as well, that flag at-risk enterprises at an early stage. But again, when I mentioned earlier about the diagnostic tools that we have, and here is where when we do capacity building, especially for your small and micro enterprises, we use these assessment type of tools so that through the interview process, just interaction with an SMME, we'll be able to identify where, what's the performance indicators, where are the areas of concern as well, and signs of distress, and so that we can be able to intervene a bit earlier, to improve productivity because there's inefficiencies, operational challenges. But specifically for us, Productivity SA's competitiveness improvement services is being leveraged, for preventative interventions. So to build resilience, this program looks at capacitating as well as ensuring that operational efficiency is one of the key factors within these businesses so that they don't have to go through the decline. They actually take from being an emerging entity or emerging company itself to becoming stable and then increasing over a period of time and not going through the decline. So reducing the likelihood of the decline itself. However, given resource constraints, interventions are prioritized based on the potential for job preservation as well as economic impact. And we actually prioritize the SMMEs based on the GDP within the province as well as the number of SMMEs within that province. And that's how the resources are actually allocated. Again, it's through the strategic partnerships on a provincial basis as well as national basis that we try to ensure that the message is taken out, but we taking forward, but we ensure that these SMMEs are capacitated and there's more holistic support through other interventions as well. It's not just internal operational efficiency, which is what we focus on, but it's also like financial support that may come from the DFIs that we spoke about, but it could come from CETFA, it could come from other opportunities. We just signed an agreement with the NYDA where we actually are looking at initiatives for your youth within the entrepreneurship space as well. So we offer the capacity building, we offer the interventions, but now we want to be able to say it's a proactive approach so that they don't go into the turnaround intervention itself. We actually have turned the business around earlier before they're even in decline. So that's the approaches that we're using. But again, we want to be able to scale up all these interventions that is based on the partnership and the co-funding agreements that we sign on. I'm going to then just hand over to our CFO to respond to the last question, which is related to the measures to implement to address persistent institutional legacy risks, such as the non-compliance, inadequate record keeping and audit findings, to strengthen governance and operational resilience in 2026-2027 financial year. Over to you, CFO. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting CEO, and good afternoon, Chair and the members. We are, of course, still dealing with the legacy risks that pertains to the procurement, non-compliance, issues relating to financial record keeping, and some of the audit findings that have proven to be repetitive. But Chair, I think I have to indicate that we have put in place measures to address these findings, but the risk still remains on our risk registers, just to make sure that we put necessary mitigations in place to deal with them. But as far as the procurement non-compliance is concerned, we have, of course, put in place the mitigations to address that. We have conducted a number of workshops internally just to train the necessary stakeholders, just to make sure that they avoid having to incur some of the non-compliances going forward. We have also started the process of reviewing some of the policies, and also on a day-to-day basis, just to ensure that we enforce compliance as far as procurement activities are concerned. And again, in the past, there were issues relating to record keeping. So even with that, we have put measures in place to ensure that the financial records are safe kept, and as and when they are needed, they are easily retrieved. We have done so by making sure that we migrate our records to SharePoint, and also to make sure that the records are also both available in hard and soft copies. In soft copies, available on SharePoint, that they can be retrieved anytime from anywhere as and when they are needed. And of course, there were some of the repetitive or repeated audit findings in the previous financial years. And what we did there was to put in place the post-audit action plan, and just to track these findings on a monthly basis in terms of the actions that we have implemented in dealing with these audit findings, and also making sure that we provide the necessary portfolio of evidence just to demonstrate what and how we are dealing with these findings, to make sure that they don't necessarily recur in the future. And in overall, we are also ensuring that we just improve the control environment in overall, just to make sure that we are not going to be having some of these audit findings going into the future, that we can also be in a position to improve in overall the audit outcomes for the entity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Chair. We have completed from Productivity SA side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. I don't know if Didi doesn't want to say anything. With your permission, if not, I can come in, Chair, to close the responses. Didi?
Minister, I think on my side, I've been covered by the team, and I think they've covered the main aspects of it. I'm happy to hand over to you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you to the DEL team for the responses almost covered. Just to say, the issue that was raised by the Honorable Member Person on the 10,000 inspectors, I think we will try to reflect on it, Chairperson, in due course, because I think we missed it when we're dealing with the DEL and the IES branch in particular, but there's work that they are doing. I think there's even some information that they provided in the report in terms of the plans for 2026-2027, including the issue of the interns, inspector interns. We will give a report in due course. Work is being done, and we are also preparing to be ready to start the recruitment of the 10,000 permanent inspectors, Chairperson. On the issue of the CCMA budget and cases backlog, I can't agree more with honorable members. We are still to engage further, see other alternatives of additional budget for CCMA for the great work that they are doing. More so that we are seeing the effectiveness and the capacity of unions and workplace bargaining forums that then puts a lot of strain on the CCMA, because now the aggrieved employees, they use majority of times CCMA as a point of first instance because the local labor forums and the workplace bargaining platforms are weakened. And I think even though it is a challenge, we need, as the CCMA and DEL, to see it as an opportunity that is presented to us for generating some revenue, working with the public sector in particular to strengthen that capacity. But once we are ready with other streams of revenue, we will present to the committee. And lastly, Chair, I think I was covered by the ED when it came to the issue of the national dialogue. It was explained that it is a special project that has been tasked the Nedlac with to be the secretariat of this national dialoguing. Otherwise, it's not a waste of time, and it's not the original task of our Nedlac. But having done a lot of good work on social dialoguing, then entrusted with this very important responsibility for our democracy. So I think I'm also covered there. Without any further thing to say, Chair, I want to appreciate the opportunity and give back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, those are the responses on the questions that would have been asked. I'll just check if there's any other point that may not have been covered on. But I take it that with the time spent, there's been every effort to get to specific questions asked by members. Yes, I just want to make sure that if there's a pending issue that cannot be taken up, we're able to do so. Otherwise, matters that relates to audits and so on, I want to emphasize that with the adopted program of the committee yesterday, there's provision to still deal with this in a focused way, and be able to look at that progress. So I'm just checking on those now. Honorable Nonzele, I see your hand.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and thanks for the feedback from Honorable Minister and her team with regard to the questions that we have raised. Just one point, Honorable Chair, which I would request that it be, if possible, but I think it's possible because on Mr. Makuku from Nedlac has spoken about it passionately. The issue of the rollout of the dialogues across the country and the impact thereof to both young people, the unemployed, and so on. that is the impact with regard to not just participation, but also the extent to which young people and unemployed would such a program impact on them. So the point therefore than a question is just to emphasize and to request if the committee can be kept abreast on the ongoing developments, including any challenges that they may be, so that we are able to read from the same slate when having to respond to whatever challenges, including successes, because it's not just about challenges, because we're looking also in terms of a successful rollout and implementation of the program relating to national dialogue. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Honorable Nonzele. I've seen that there's been acknowledgement from Mr. Makuku with the signal he has given on the chat side. I think, honorable members and the minister, as we thank you and your team for the responses to these critical areas that members would have looked at. And I take it that even from the part of the entities, they will be able to still reflect on the points that have been raised, whether in the form of questions or comments, in a way that helps us to get reports where we will be doing the oversight on the implementation, that those reports would just not be about just probably numbers, percentages, but in the true sense, how the lived reality of people is changing for the better in that regard. In particular, on the part of Nedlac, you've emphasized on the training programs, but your framing, it's something to look at, that if it's dependent solely on social partners putting up such submissions, and there's no proactive way to get them to be activated, that target gets to be quite difficult to be achieved once it relies on those dependencies. But of course, it must also create space for the social partners to also be seen to be active, especially as it relates to the work in their constituencies. Because we cannot ignore, though, that what is out there, sometimes it's also based on a lack of that information. I will take it that if all social partners would have participated in the Employment Services Amendment Bill process, as well as the understanding of its link to the National Labour Migration Policy, and we report back to the constituencies, at least there would be an understanding that even if there are frustrations in terms of what others need to do, but from a labor point of view and employment side, at least these attempts get to be quite important. I'm saying this over and above what the political leadership, like the ministry, would be communicated, which may be regarded as more of the political. But the platform important as the Nedlac, where you've got these social partners, which includes the civil society representation, that these groupings can also be at least getting from the same, so that the credibility of what we are saying is being done politically, it's understood. And I'm saying this because if this continues in that way, it may also undermine the legal instruments that are being put in place, because probably people may not really be in the know-how on where things are at this point in responding to these challenges that they have on the ground. I'm making that to be the example in that regard. Of course, with the productivity and the CCMA, of course, I think at the time the committee looked at its report, our resolve will still be something that we emphasize, that it may be very good to look at addressing the backlogs and everything else. But the funding part of it becomes also quite critical. Otherwise, to look at partnerships, but also ourselves as the oversight committee in supporting the work of also the ministry and engaging with treasury should still continue as we would have resolved. Otherwise, honorable members, I take it that we have had at least enough time today for engagements and the responses, because sometimes we run out of time and other responses may need to come in writing, and the time it takes between that and actually getting the response may not be as live as it is the case as you ask the question now, and could remember even as the responses get to be made. With that, I take it that committee support. These were the items for the day, unless I'm leaving any other item to follow before I adjourn the meeting.
Yes, Chair, there's still just the minutes, Chair. One
Yes.
set.
That's for the committee. So in that score, with regard to the appearance of the minister and the entities, we really appreciate. Would then in that way release you if you so want to be released. Want to stay on the platform, you are free to do so, as Parliament is open to them. But we would not accept any reason for non-delivery that you were kept on the platform when you really wanted to attend to those areas of work. So you are released in that way. We'll then get back to the item and commit some item thereof.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members. Goodbye.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, your list. Now present the minutes of the 1st of April. As you see that, I hope all honorable members are able to see the flighted minutes. Those were people in attendance. So we considered the draft report on the oversight in the KZN. I'm sure over and above us having to respond to ethics committee, but there are also positive outcomes you begin to see on after our visit. Quarter 1 and quarter 2 reports from these entities, which was also a committee report. Consideration of minutes and the closure. Having not seen any vote in terms of corrections, may I then get a mover and seconder for the approval of minutes? Can go back to attendees of the meeting. Page. Honorable Nonsele. Yes, I can confirm you were in the meeting. You can unmute and proceed. Honorable Nonsele.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members. I move for the adoption of the minutes, that is of the meeting held on the 18th of March, 2026. So I move.
No, that's the first. We're dealing with the 1st April. So the 18th of March was in the agenda there. So that's 1st April. So just make that correction. But there is
Thanks, Chair. That's my mistake, because the date for the minutes was in fact shaded. So I can see the correction is the 1st of April. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nonsele. Honorable Maitso.
Yeah, thanks. I second the adoption of the minutes.
So the minutes have been moved for adoption or approval and seconded. Any objection in us approving these minutes as a true reflection of our discussions on the 1st of April? No objection. So the minutes are then approved. I take it then that would have been the last item.
Yes, Honorable Chair, that was the last item on the agenda.
Honorable members, let me take the opportunity to thank you once more for your participation and engagement, in particular, as you were asking questions and comments. This will enrich the final report as would be put together for adoption and debate in the House. As you'll be aware, we're dealing with 3 entities today. Next week, we'll be taking the last 2 entities, which is the compensation fund and the UIF. So we'll take those next week, as would be convening the portfolio committee again. As the meeting is now officially adjourned.